Hello and welcome everyone to Catching a Phish, simple tips and tricks to keep yourself secure. My name is Nathan Austin. I'll be presenting the content today, and Stephanie Kingsland is behind the scenes producing and staffing and making sure that the Q&A gets answered and responded to. So thank you for joining us today. I'm very excited to go through this. This was really fun to prepare for because we wanted to provide as real examples as possible, and some of the things we're going to talk about today, some of the phishing examples actually worked. So this isn't just theory. This is stuff that actually worked, and people actually did have happen to them that did result in some loss, but it was minimal in both examples, minimal to nothing in both examples. But I'm looking forward to sharing that with you today, as well as to help put this in context as far as the problem we're really trying to solve here. All right, so today what we're going to do, the purpose of this session, really it's to help raise awareness and keep you, I say you, but you, your family, your company, your coworkers, digitally safe. Because typically the type of actions or kind of bad things that can happen oftentimes are financial, meaning that someone might try and steal banking information or get you to buy gift cards or to wire money, or just basically something that could have a negative financial consequence, whether it be on you individually or your organization or a friend or coworker, et cetera. So really, I'm hoping that this helps keep you, again, digitally safe. And I'd like to ask all of you, as you're joining and as you're listening, think about those in your life. And I don't just mean professionally, because a lot of times when we think about security awareness training, we think about corporations doing security awareness training, talking about phishing and how to avoid this stuff for them. But I also feel that this is just as, if not more important, for you as an individual. Corporations have IT support and have IT resources and security measures in place that oftentimes we as individuals do not have in place. And so as we go through this today, yes, I am speaking to you as an organization or folks of an organization, and how this might help protect your company. And we're also talking about all the individuals in your life, including yourself, that could be vulnerable to these kind of attacks. All right, so we're gonna, so that's the purpose of today. Secondarily, we're gonna go through some of the common phishing tactics and then the goals that they have. Why does this happen? Who are targets? We're going to kind of talk about that. Then we're going to go into our demonstration that we typically do for these sessions. Is not going to be going through, I actually have screenshots. I didn't want to have the live emails, but I'm actually going to show you 3 different phishing examples, and we're going to talk through some of the ways in which how you can identify that it's fake or that it's a phish, as well as show you ones but these actually worked. So even though they worked, there's some reasons why they worked. And so we'll talk about ways in which you can keep yourself safe and recognize those so you don't fall victim to similar attacks. Finally, we're going to show you what can you do to prevent this, what happens if you did actually click on this, or if you did provide information. We're going to provide some conversation around that, and finally some Q&A at the end. So there'll be about 30 minutes of content, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. We are recording this, and we will send a link of the recording out afterwards. So hopefully if you can reference it later, or if there's anyone else in your life or your organization that could benefit from this, we'd appreciate you sharing as well. Finally, before we move on, the Q&A is open. So if you have any questions as we go along, we're not going to answer them live. Stephanie might be answering them offline, but we will open it up for Q&A afterwards. But as we go through the session, if you have any questions or you'd like any clarity, please go ahead and do that in the moment so you don't forget, because then we will answer those at the end and go through those details after the end of the presentation. All right. Well, one thing really quick, 1 minute about MyTech. MyTech is a small and medium business consulting organization around IT services. We only work with organizations that are, in the Colorado, Minnesota area geographies. And over the last 20 years of being in business, we have learned a proven IT strategy that we know can deliver consistent, secure, and reliable results for our clients. Now that requires a partnership where we work to build a plan and mutually execute that plan, where we know that plan over time as it executes can remove IT challenges and allows you and your team to focus on better serving your customers and enabling you to be more adaptable to the other business challenges that we all inevitably face beyond IT. And so with that said, our clients, we measure this, can achieve 4 times more value and productivity from their IT investments over the life cycle of that plan and executing that plan and executing that proven strategy. So we're not here to talk about that today, but if you'd like to hear more, if you'd like to discuss that with us, please raise your hand. We'd love to chat with you more about that. But again, that's not why you're here today. So let's move on with the rest of the session. Okay, so first and foremost, what is phishing? All right, so what does it mean to be phished? Phishing is typically when bad actors, in general, we're talking about people that are out to manipulate, to fool, to defraud, to exploit the vulnerable, the unaware. They typically are sending emails, but it also could come via text. So for the most part, we're going to be showing emails, but just know that you probably all received text messages. And if you were a live audience and you were in the room with me today, I'd ask you to raise your hand. How many of you have also received text messages that look suspicious, or text messages with links that look like they could be fraudulent or trying to get you to click on them? So really, phishing is bad actors sending emails or text messages that are trying to get you to take some sort of action. So the nice thing is, if you're not taking that action, if you don't take any action, you're okay. So for instance, if you click on a link, they're trying to get you to, sometimes just clicking on the link is all it takes. Sometimes then if you click on that link and you provide information such as maybe you're saying, hey, we need your password information, or you accidentally provide a credit card or your social security number, anything like that, they might be taking you to a page that looks like Microsoft Office 365, for example, but it's not. And it might get you into your password information. And then you're wondering what's going on with that, but they use that information later. And we'll talk about that here in a bit. Maybe they might want to get you to buy gift cards. That's one of the examples we'll talk about today. Then the other example is who does phishing target? Because, okay, so now if we understand what it means to be phish, well, who does phishing actually target? My best way, in a simple way to say that, is they target the unaware. The reason why I use that phrase in particular is because if you make yourself aware and if you help others become aware, we can prevent all of this stuff from happening. So they target the unaware, someone that's is not really paying attention to some of these things, are not really aware that these are things that could actually happen, or the problems that might exist from accidentally clicking on something and providing information. And again, as I mentioned earlier, this could be targeting your family members. This could be targeting coworkers. Very often, if it's a targeted attack, like one of the ones we'll show you, they're actually targeting someone that has financial access, the ability to get reimbursed, or the ability to have information to bank accounts, etc. And really, ultimately, phishing in a wide net perspective, because sometimes it's targeted, but sometimes it's just, it's a numbers game, and they send out millions of emails, and all they need is a couple people to be able to click on them in order for them to be successful. So ultimately, they're trying to target anyone with an email or a cell phone, which pretty much is nearly everyone in society today. Okay, so now we have a better understanding of what is phishing. Let's move on to some of the common phishing tactics. All right, so let's go down these in order. So authority. What I mean by authority is sometimes phishing tactics will pose as someone with authority. That could be your boss, CEO, CFO, an executive, someone with whom, like if you're in an organization and you receive an email from this person or a text message from that says they're this person, you're more apt to act because it's coming from a person or position of authority. So that's what I mean by authority. Urgency might be self-explanatory, but they're trying to get, the bad actors here are trying to get you to do something now, something quickly, something time sensitive, something where you're not taking the time or taking the moment to maybe run across that person in the hallways, or send them a message on Teams or whatever messaging platform, or catch them in person by walking in the halls if you're in the hall with them at the same time. They're trying to get you to take action quickly so that you don't have the opportunity to check on whether the validity of the request. Another one is secrecy or confidentiality. We'll show how Some of these are just, it might be a personal request. The request might be private, like this is a person, like a private request coming, so it makes it feel like it's coming just for me, or maybe it's for a surprise or a gift, something that gets the person to say, oh, I'm helping out, I'm doing someone a favor, I'm helping them. They can't do it themselves because they're in the middle of something and they want to surprise someone, or they need to do it so that the other person doesn't see. I've had it with one of my clients where this happened. Our clients where they tried to fool the person, and they did actually. They fooled the person that had access to the financial records because they posed it as something relative to an acquisition. And for anyone who's familiar with acquisitions, mergers and acquisitions, that's very confidential. You can't share it. You can't say anything to anyone about it. So they're trying to impose or imply some sort of secrecy or confidentiality, so you're not asking or communicating this outwardly. Then current events. This one is actually, it's kind of like clickbait, if you will. So for example, what are the timeliness of certain common situations or current events, excuse me, that might make someone click? So for instance, you know, at the end of January, which we just passed, if someone got an email about the 1099 or a W-2, they might be more apt to click on it than if they got that midsummer, for example. What about the elections that were happening? Were there charged conversations happening then? And what if someone got an email that might agitate them because of some political comment that was made in an email that might get them to click without thinking? Taking advantage of current events, taking advantage of the pandemic, taking advantage of anything that's going on in a current event that might get someone to click without thinking. And that's the point, is to take advantage of that, because it might seem like an email that you should expect, or an email that might come from a marketing agency, or an email that could be legitimate and valid. But again, the point is to get you to not take time to think about it. The other one I like to mention is common situations. One of the examples we're going to use today is receiving a package. Who hasn't increased maybe the number of packages they've had delivered to their homes over the pandemic over the last year? Maybe it's something holidays. You know, common, like we all experience holidays at different times of our life, at different times of the year. And if someone's exploiting holidays, maybe bank statements, you get monthly bank statements, you get monthly bills. Nearly everyone has those experiences. And so if I'm a bad actor, I know this, I might try and exploit someone who is expecting to get a monthly bill via their email, or expecting to get a monthly bank statement in their email, and to get them to click on something without thinking. So those are some of the tactics that bad actors and from a phishing perspective take. And ultimately their goal, as I mentioned on multiple occasions, is they want you to act without due diligence or act without thinking. They're hoping to get information that they could exploit in the future. So for instance, if they get your credit card information, they might be able to use that to do fraudulent charges. They might get your password, which might then, maybe they take over your email. This has happened before, where maybe they take over your email or forward emails. So they'll create forwarding rules. This has actually happened. They'll forward emails from you until they get that financial information, and that allows them to get a foothold into other things. So that one piece of information they got from you might not have given them everything they needed, but it gave them that foothold, that them, I'm meaning the bad actors, gave them that foothold into your world, into your company's world, that allowed them to dig in deeper and exploit other information from which then they could act in a future date. And finally, the gain access for future exploit. What I mean by gaining access is sometimes when you click on that link or potentially open up a document that you shouldn't have opened that was suspicious, that is inadvertently, and you don't even realize it's happening, installing malware or keyloggers or something on your machine behind the scenes that then could be used to gain a foothold inside your environment, get behind your security policies and procedures, as well as then, you know, move across the environment. You know, one of the things that when you think about different exploits, a lot of people are familiar from years ago, the Target exploit, that they were in Target's environment for many, many months before they were actually discovered. And the average exploit is on your computer or in your network for over 120, I think it's actually around 180 days now. So from 4 to 6 months, they're in your world, investigating, seeing, tracking your key logs, everything you're doing before they might choose to ransom your machine or encrypt your machine. They've already taken advantage of the data. They've already exploited what they want. And so that's what I mean by gaining access for future exploits. So those are some of the common phishing tactics and some of the goals that they have. So keep those in mind as we look at this next slide, which is human error Dave. Ultimately, this is what I want you to take from this slide, is that, and this is probably something you've seen before, but it does illustrate a couple points. One, when it comes to social engineering, and phishing is an example or an attempt at social engineering, vulnerabilities and potential threats, it only takes one time. It only takes one click. One mistake is all it takes to allow the bad actors in, which means that we must be diligent every time, and bad actors only need to be successful once. So that's one of the challenges of phishing and why awareness is so critical, because, and imagine, as I mentioned earlier, think about those people in your life, whether they be coworkers in your organization or family members, that they are potentially vulnerable to these kind of exploits because they're not aware. So again, I think about family members just as much as I think about coworkers in this example. And family members, unfortunately, don't have the benefit of having all this extra security that we as corporations and individuals as part of companies have. So, all right. So keep those in mind. Keep Dave, or the human error Dave, or that human error Dave in your life. I know we're not trying to poke fun at people named Dave or David or Mac or Buddy. We're just trying to give an illustration that it really just takes one time for bad actors to take a foothold. Okay. With that said, let's look at some real world phishing examples. And 2 of the 3 of these examples that I'm about to show you, again, I've got screenshots. I'm not actually pulling up the actual emails, but they're screenshots of the actual emails, and I'm going to tell stories about them. 2 of these 3 examples we're about to give actually worked. And so this is real world stuff, and I'm hoping that we can all take lessons. And I asked the people that had this happen to them if they'd be okay with me using this example to share, so that hopefully it can create awareness and help other people avoid what happened to them. So let's start with phishing example number 1. All right, so phishing example number 1. So I'm at first, if you're a part of MyTech, you know that Leif Wildenberg is our CEO. That's not a secret. That's not private information. That is available. If you do look on the internet, you're going to see that. Look on LinkedIn, you're going to see that Leif Wildenberg is our president and CEO. And everyone in our organization knows that. So this is an example where an email was sent from our CEO. So first and foremost, remember I talked about the different tactics that bad actors take? Well, this one, they used, and by the way, I forgot to mention that it's not just one of the tactics. Oftentimes they use multiple facets of those tactics at the same time to take advantage of or to try and manipulate you into feeling and taking action without asking. So in this example, they started with authority. Started with, well, this is Leif Wildenberg, and people know that he's the CEO and president. And this was very targeted because they knew the person that they sent this to was someone in our organization. So I don't know how they got this information. Maybe they called us, maybe they asked for an email, maybe somehow, some way they got the email address of someone in our organization who does work closely with Leif, who knows that they might be inclined to take this action. So now, however, one of the things that came about is that how would you notice that this is fake? Well, okay, this does have a suspicious email, but what if that was just something that maybe it was a voice to text, or maybe it was something that he's using this email because he doesn't want to let other people know about it. He has a personal request, so he's using his personal email potentially. It is a little suspect that it doesn't have L. Wildenberg or anything related to his name or anything like that. But so it is a little suspicious in the email, but okay, we're still moving forward here. So then what does the bad actor try and do? The bad actor suggests secrecy or confidentiality. First of all, I need your cell number. I have a personal request. Now, if you're someone who works closely with Leaf, and he asks you for maybe a personal request, you're probably apt to maybe respond. You're like, well, and not everyone in our organization necessarily has Leaf's cell phone number on speed dial, so they wouldn't necessarily know that it is or isn't his cell phone number. But that could be something to look up, by the way, is make sure you look for someone's cell phone number if they're on your company directory. But anyway, suggesting secrecy or confidentiality. So right now, that's two of the two of the tactics that we mentioned earlier that phishers oftentimes use. Again, cell number and a personal request. Lastly, now, sense of urgency. So those are 3 of the 5 tactics that we identified that phishers often try and take advantage of relative to getting someone to take action without thinking or without acting. So they've used authority, suggesting secrecy or confidentiality, as well as suggesting a sense of urgency. All right, so what happened with this? This email and example resulted in this person on our team giving their phone number, and they did receive text messages from that person requesting that they go online and buy a few $100s worth of gift cards. When they went and bought those gift cards, once they received them online, then the person said, okay, now this person thinking that Leaf is asking for this, it's like, hey, I wanted to give these gift cards as a gift to individuals. So could you please give me the code on the gift card, send pictures of it or screenshots of it, and text it to me so I can use them? So lo and behold, the person's like, well, that makes sense. If you want to use those, you want to keep them secret, here, let me do that, and I'll send them to you. And so now those gift cards and the codes to execute or to use those gift cards were sent via text, and then they were used immediately. So this is the example. I wanted to provide this one first because it is an example of people can and will target your organization for something as simple as a few $100s worth of gift cards. Now, fortunately, this was only a few $100s worth of gift cards, and it was found out relatively quickly after that happened, so that they were able to realize, and so that this person will not fall victim to something like this again. And at the end, we're going to talk about what are some of the things you can do to prevent something like this happening, or how can you make sure that part of your organizational process and procedure, make sure that for any final request, you have something defined to mitigate against something like this happening. So that's an example of a real phishing email that resulted in quick action with a personal cell phone number and a personal request with the authority of the president of the organization. And the action was a few $100s worth of gift cards that was actually executed. Okay, so that's the example of something that did actually happen. Here is phishing example number 2. Now this one was to a friend of mine, and being that I'm in IT, they asked me, I was made aware of this because after they actually clicked on this and after they provided information, they asked me, hey, is this real or not? Because they know I'm in IT and I'm in security and I'm aware, and I work with folks in this regard. So, and it was definitely identified as a scam. But one of the things that we're going to call out here, for example, is that it's not, if you notice, this is not a real U.S. Postal Service email address. However, if you're on a mobile phone, when you just look at an email on your mobile phone, it doesn't show you the email. You have to click on it intentionally for it to actually show you the email. So this is an example of where if I'm on my computer, say my Outlook or my email program, I might see this really quickly and easily. However, if I'm on my mobile device, it's much easier for me to be fooled if I'm not intentional about double checking the email address. All right, so that's an example, one of the pieces of information that would have enabled you to find out that this is a fake email. You know, and how many of you have gotten an email like this, for example, and it just says, here's the code number, or here's whatever, it's just a random number of digits, but okay, maybe it looks legitimate because it actually has something that says, well, maybe it's a tracking number or something like that that I'm looking for. And how many of you would actually double check that tracking number? So, okay, there's some things that say this could be legitimate. And then a delivery failed. Well, how many of you, again, using that common situation or common occurrence, is how many of you might be in a situation to receive a package that you might be expecting? I know I mean, with different things, I'm doing some home improvement projects. I'm expecting packages all the time of different things that I'm ordering or that I'm picking up. So, and in this example, this person told me one of the reasons why they actually clicked on this is because, and I kid you not, this is where it's a numbers game, is that this person had actually received a failed delivery from the post office 48 hours prior to this email coming through because of something not being able to be delivered. And so this phisher got really lucky because in this example, they happened to catch this person when they were expecting a package. They had actually received a notification that the package was failed delivery and that they were trying to deliver again. And again, it looks legitimate. It's actually using the US Postal Service logo. So at a glance, it passes the test. Right, so there's several things that that got lucky here, but there's also things that are showing that this could be real. And then who doesn't love getting packages, right? So even if you're not expecting a package, well, gosh, if someone's trying to send you a package and they're not able to deliver it, don't you want to try and get it? Of course you do. So this is an example too of where using a common occurrence or something that people would want to get a package as a reason for them to act quickly, act before thinking, or act before doing their due diligence. Now, this last part of this example is that, and this is also the difference of if you're on your computer versus a mobile device. If you hover over the link, it's pretty obvious of what it is. It was VMI.VMI2599. And I didn't put the actual domain here, but not USPS.com. It was some other domain name. And so if you're on your computer and you hover over this, it's really easy to see the URL is not legitimate. The URL is not the US Postal Service. But if you're on your mobile device, it's much harder to see it because you don't see the URL. You just see the rescheduled delivery, and you can't really hover over it on your mobile phone without actually clicking on it. So those are some of the reasons why this person actually was phished. And so excuse me, the result of this phish was that this person actually clicked on the link because they were expecting this package. They had received a delivery or an attempt to redeliver. They entered their credit card information, and then after they enter the credit card information, the site also asked for their social security number. That's when this person's kind of hackles went up or their hairs raised on the back of their neck, like, wait a second, why would the US Postal Service need my social security number? And you also could ask that about your credit card because they're delivering a package to you, unless it's COD, which I don't think I'm sure they probably do, maybe they don't, I don't know. Then there's no reason why they would need your credit card number either. However, it was that second action when they needed the social security number that sent this person's suspicions up and said, wait a second, this doesn't seem legitimate. That's actually when they contacted me, again, knowing that I'm in the industry, and I said, yep, this is absolutely a scam. You need to cancel your credit card. So they actually were able to go online, immediately cancel their credit card, and within a couple hours of them canceling their credit card and this happening, fraudulent charges were made on this card, or attempted on this card. It wasn't able to happen. So this is an example of a phishing email that worked. And part of it is this wide net that phishers sometimes cast is to say that the chances of someone in our world expecting a package and the chances of someone in our world maybe receiving an undeliverable package or a need to a redelivery attempt on a package is high. And so the additional variable is the fact that a lot of people are checking these emails on their phones. And so when you're checking on your phones, there's things that take extra action or extra due diligence in order for you to actually see some of the examples of why it could be a phish. So here's a few examples. And this one actually worked, but nothing bad happened other than this person had to get a new credit card issued. So, but hopefully that helps with some of that visibility. So the last example that we'll provide here, this one is a real one that was actually sent to me within the last, if you notice, the date is February 10th. So just a couple weeks ago. And this one did not work, by the way, but here's a few examples. So when you look at phishing email number 3, one of the things I liked, or not liked, but I thought was interesting about this email is that at a glance, it's coming from a legitimate email or domain. Meaning that if you went to OneDrive.com, if you looked at the domain here, if you went to the domain, it's coming from OneDrive.com. You could go out to OneDrive.com, and that's real. That's Microsoft's OneDrive domain. So at a glance, it starts to pass the test. However, I wasn't expecting anything from this sender. I don't know Angela Matero. I was not expecting the signed, grouped, secured, scanned proposal. I wasn't expecting that, and so it definitely was started to raise my suspicion. Then notice there's creating some urgency. Download these files now, or until only available until February 28th. So it was creating to create some urgency for me to take action. And then I did not know the sender. Notice it did provide an email address, but I don't know that sender. So that's another suspicion. Then again, this is an example also, if you're on your mobile phone, you wouldn't necessarily know that you can't hover over the link on your mobile phone. And maybe there's a way to do that. I don't know. I should have done some research on that, but maybe someone out there knows how to do it and can put it in the comments or in the Q&A. But if you hover over the link and you're on your computer, it was at distinct-wealthy-nickel. Not OneDrive.com. It wasn't OneDrive. It was some other domain. .com. But again, you can't really see that on mobile, but that's an easy trick when you hover over it to see that it wasn't a legitimate domain. And then the other thing, while a lot of phishing emails, some of the ways in which we used to catch phishing, or what makes them more obvious, is when they misspell words, they're a little messy, the grammar seems to be off. But if you noticed, in pretty much none of these examples was there anything along those lines where grammar or spelling was off. However, phishers sometimes get lazy, right? Did someone forget that they were sending from OneDrive? So notice it looks like they copied and pasted a Dropbox. And if I actually hover over this, it does actually show a Dropbox link. So on one hand, they're using OneDrive up here. And on the other hand, they copied and pasted a Dropbox link here at the bottom. So another reason to see that's incongruent and for suspicion. So we did catch this. This was no action was taken, but it's an example that I wanted to give because at first glance, it does look like it could be legitimate. And especially if you see this on your mobile, you might not recognize some of these more obvious or evident things to catch it as a phish. Okay, so now that we've gone through those examples, what can you do? So first of all, expect that phishing attempts are going to happen and be suspicious. Do not click on the links. So for instance, if I want to go to a link, go directly to the website. If they're asking for your password, from your bank or from a vendor that's a bill, like a utility vendor or something like that, go to the site in question, type it into your browser. Don't actually use the links. If it's something like a financial request or request to take action, maybe go to the person, verbally confirm, call them on the phone, track them down in the office if you're in the office with them. Make sure to verbally confirm with the person who's making the request about gift cards or wiring funds or any of those things, because that's just a simple, quick thing you can do to just double check and make sure that you're not accidentally providing financial information or giving gift card information to someone that shouldn't get it. I do recommend that you define a process or procedure for any financial request. That could be internal processes and procedures, as well as processes and procedures with your bank, to make sure that if they do receive a request, maybe the requirement is that they have to call you. Maybe there's some way in which you can work that out with your bank, so there's some sort of financial safeguards from being able to accidentally wire money to the wrong recipient. Be aware, just to increase awareness, because ultimately phishers attack the unaware. If you're aware of these things can happen, it reduces the probability that you're going to fall victim to them. I do recommend that if you ask for security awareness training, that's how you increase awareness, not only for yourself, but for your family or your organization. And if from an organizational perspective, build security awareness training into your employee onboarding process and annual training regimen so that you can help increase awareness and keep people aware that this stuff happens. Again, 2 of those 3 examples worked. And those are recent examples. I didn't have to dig deep to find them. They were there. So those are things you can do proactively. But what if you do get phished? Well, first of all, it depends on what you did. And we'll also provide as a follow-up resource, the Federal Trade Commission provides a resource site that says, if you provided this information, what should you do? If you provided that information, what should you do? So there's some information there that we'll share. But if you provided credit card information, cancel your card immediately. What if you provided your social security number? Well, a lot of times your social security number could be found out on the internet if people really know what they're doing. It's not hard to find. However, if you did provide it, potentially put a lock on your credit file or pay attention to your credit file so you can see if there are any inquiries coming through, because someone might try and take out credit in your name or do identity theft. So be aware of that. What if you clicked on a link or a document that you think may have been malicious? Now, here's probably the example that for individuals, if it's on your personal machine or a family member, I don't know, this one's a hard one, because I'm hoping that your antivirus might catch it, or I'm hoping you might have to take it into some consumer technology company to help service like Geek Squad or something like that. Can't believe I actually just said that in real world, but ultimately report it to your IT company. Do not hide that. If you accidentally clicked on something, or if you feel like you might have unintentionally clicked on something, do not hide it. Report it to your IT support or your IT resources as soon as possible, because I promise you the bad actors will act very quickly, and sometimes the only thing that we can do is to get your computer off the network, and sometimes the only thing you do to guarantee is to rebuild your machine. And so personally, that's also something you can do, but don't hide this. If you accidentally click on something, please report it to your IT department. All right, so recommended actions, those are some individual things you can do, but identify areas where you, your company, or your family might be at risk. I recommend that personally and or professionally take action to help increase awareness with those individuals or those folks. Raise a hand if you'd like MyTech to help. We'd love to be able to help provide security awareness training, this or other types of security awareness training. This was really focused on phishing, but there's others, so we can help with that. And as well as join us for other future virtual events. We host them every other week, and we have bi-monthly or every other month Power User Group sessions. The next one's coming up this Friday around Microsoft Teams and Microsoft 365 resources. So thank you all very much. I know I went a little over, as I didn't think that going into all those details was going to take as long, but hopefully this was valuable to you. I really want to thank everyone for attending. For those of you who need to sign off, again, thank you very much. We'll send up a follow-up email with the recording. For those of you who can stick around, we'd like to open it up for any questions you might have so we can offer any clarity or talk through any details that we may have overlooked. So Stephanie, let's open it up for questions.
Thanks, Nate. And as you were going through the session, someone did post that you can click and hold on a link in a mobile and it will display the link but not open it.
Nice. So. I think I've never tried that because I'm scared to click on it. So I think that's good to know that you can actually do that on your mobile.
Awesome.
But be careful that you don't actually click on it.
Yeah, I just tested it when she wrote that. So it does do that.
It does work. Awesome. That's great.
Awesome. So we did have a couple questions here. So the first one is, what should you do if you receive a meeting invite from someone you don't know? Do you just delete it?
That is a great question. One of the things that I have found on meeting invites that because sometimes they're forwarded, like if a meeting invite is forwarded to you, it comes from the person who originated the meeting. So that's actually a little tricky. But I don't know of a meeting invite itself being something malicious. Maybe there might be links in the meeting invite or attachments in the meeting invite that could be. Another way you could look at it though is if you hit reply all on that, sometimes it'll actually show. I know in calendar invites, if you do a reply all, it'll actually show all the attendees. So that might be a way in which you don't necessarily have to reply, but just if you click reply all, it'll show all the attendees of that meeting. So those are sometimes the ways in which I'll look at that as far as who's attending. Is this something that I should be receiving? But if it's suspicious, I would definitely delete it. I mean, or send it along to your IT for them to take a look at it. But in general, I'm not aware of, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist or won't exist in the future, of just accepting a calendar invite could be malicious or cause a problem on your machine. So, but yeah, definitely be suspicious nonetheless.
Thanks. Another question here is, can replying to an email without clicking on a link will allow the phisher access to other information?
That's a really good question. So I have heard, and this is, I have heard of some rare, they happen, exploits that if you have your email preview on, right? If you even preview the email, that it actually, like in your Outlook, you can have the view screen on where you actually don't have to double click to open it. I have heard of some exploits that take advantage of that preview that could actually, without you taking any further action, could happen. But I have not seen a lot of that. I've never actually, not that I've seen every exploit, but in general, no. If you didn't click on a link or open the document, you're in general, you're not going to be causing a problem. In fact, I've definitely like that actually the email that the third example that I gave here in the session, I worked with our internal IT. I forwarded it to our internal IT so that we could work through trying to identify how we might be able to block that. Because oftentimes what will happen with those kind of emails is that if it went to one person in the organization, they might be trying to target or exploit other people in the organization. So there are things that IT can do at a spam filter level, at a security level, to potentially identify those and block or filter those before they even get to people's inbox in the future. So so I say that to answer the question of forwarding those or replying to those doesn't necessarily create a problem, but just be aware by forwarding or replying to them, you're also creating extra instances of that email where people might be able to click on it. So, but in general, just forwarding or replying is not going to create a problem. It's not going to cause the action to happen. But in rare instances, I have heard of over the years some extremely rare exploits that take advantage of just the preview or just opening up the email itself. So be suspicious, and curiosity kills the cat, right? That's definitely something to keep in mind with this. And I know sometimes you think, gosh, I want to reply to this or I want to forward it. But in general, if you think an email is suspicious, don't forward it, don't reply to it, just delete it. And if you think it looks like it could be coming from someone in your organization or someone you know, well, contact them, pick up the phone, send them a text message, do something to actually reach out to them and personally validate that that's something you should have been receiving or expected to receive, just to keep yourself safe.
Thanks, Nate. Those are all the questions we have in the Q&A panel.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for attending. This is a topic that's near and dear to my heart because I worry about those near me that I love and care about that might not be as aware of these kind of issues and how technology works and how people try and exploit and take advantage of people that aren't aware. So the best thing that we can do, one of our values is care and share. So one of the best things you can do to care and share about those individuals, whether it be on your team or family members or friends, is to try and share this information, share anytime this happens. It's okay to talk about it. Don't be embarrassed. It happens. Again, 2 of these 3 examples in the last month happened to people that I work with or that I know. And so this stuff does happen. So just help create awareness because that ultimately is what's going to help us all stay better, more digitally safe. So take care, everyone. Make it a great day, and look forward to seeing you soon.